everyone. So we're going to Combe Mill.
But that was an interesting exercise, and of course we can show that to the public when we get it all back.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, let's get into the mill and have a look around.
That's great.
So we're here at Combe Mill, or Combe Mill.
Definitely Combe.
Combe Mill with a couple of blacksmiths, and they're busy engaging all of their customers and effectively smithing up various different bits of tooling, various different bits of kit. So there's two stations, both of which have got air blowers, and if you look across the top of the ceiling, you'll see one of those line bars, and what that's for is generating the air and providing power for a lot of different equipment down here in the depths of the mill. What have we got here?
This is our modern Wellman Roby boiler. This generates the steam for the beam engine, and the beam engine drives the line shafting that runs through the building.
And it's to replace an older boiler that you've got downstairs.
It used to be powered by steam from the Cornish boiler, which was condemned in 2003.
Okay, Peter, nice to meet you. What a beautiful beam engine you've got behind you.
Yes, well, think of it as being the mid-1880s, 1852, it was manufactured.
And it's driven by steam.
Yes.
And you've got a big boiler. Now, the original boiler was down there then,
yes.
But you've got a big boiler outside now, which is a more modern boiler because that one was decommissioned.
Yes, that was failed its safety test in 2004.
Okay.
But, well, normally it would be driven by the water wheel.
Right,
but
of course.
The state of the river doesn't always allow you to run it.
To run the water wheel, yeah.
And this would have then taken over.
So are you responsible for keeping this serviced and maintained?
To some extent, yes.
You have a whole team. You have a whole team. Okay, understood. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. And then over in the corner, you got those two spinning wheels. And those are, is that a centrifugal regulator?
Yes. It comes back through this linkage here.
Okay.
Down to a butterfly valve on the steam input. It runs normally at about 40 revolutions a minute. 40
RPM, or 40 strokes a minute. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's about where I run, about 40 strokes a minute these days. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks ever so much, Peter. Very kind. Thank you. Derek!
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you. All right. Excellent. This has been fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. So this is the bit that you look after then?
I look after this section here, which is basically the engineering metal cutting area.
Okay,
All
right.
the rest is wood.
So this is the metalwork section then, and we've got some woodwork section over here. Right, okay, fantastic. Well, let's have a quick look in your section then.
There's, come on in.
Okay.
There's not enough space.
Come on in. So what have you got in here then,
So
Derek?
what we've got here is a miniature line shaft.
Okay.
Line shaft here.
Oh yeah.
In miniature.
I can see that now up there.
The line shaft is driven by an electric motor under the bench.
Okay.
It drives this lathe.
Okay.
It drives a multi-purpose spindle and other things.
Right.
So let's start the lathe.
Yeah.
And you can see we can do some real work on there, turning bits and bobs. We're yet to do a project for that.
Okay.
In addition, we've got a multi-purpose spindle which is switched on and off by what's called a striking gear. The striking gear is up there.
Okay.
You can't buy that these days, and we've made that.
Okay.
And what happens is you strike the pulley from the slipping pulley to the driving pulley. By just putting this down here.
Okay. Oh, right, and that engages...
That engages the fixed pulley.
Yeah, okay.
And then you can do some multiple spindle polishing and drilling all sorts of things.
Brilliant stuff. What's this bad boy? Oh, it's a little... it's a hand drill.
It's a hand drill.
That's
renovated.
Beautiful.
Hundreds of these were made in various types and various forms, and we can actually get kids to drill metal with that. Do you want to have a go? Well, really fire ahead, and that will start cutting.
And there we go, we're cutting metal. That's
cutting
beautiful.
Metal here, Vicky.
Yeah, I can see a little bit of swarf coming out of there.
It doesn't take much actually to get right through there. As you can see, there have been various holes made previously.
And I've just noticed something else, Derek. At the top of here, I can see that if I just get the camera lady to come round here, okay, have a look at the top of that drill, and
It's
you
a
can
pawl
see,
mechanism.
yeah, that's
the feed
actually
pawl.
that's feeding the drill, mechanically feeding the drill.
Yep.
Into the metalwork,
Yep.
and that's why I just thought it was weight that was encouraging that just to sort of work its way through the metal. That's fantastic.
It forces down
That's
about
fantastic.
40 thousandths of an inch per rev.
Good stuff. So you've renovated
So that has
this.
been given to us
Yeah.
in a rusty state.
Yeah.
We've spent some time in making it work so that people can play with it. The kids love that.
Brilliant.
The kids love it because it's mechanical,
Yeah.
and they're cutting metal.
They're cutting metal by turning a big wheel. Yeah, no, that's
they're
brilliant.
actually doing metal work.
Brilliant. What else you got in here
So
then?
basically, we've got here a treadle lathe.
Okay.
So it's a lathe like this.
Yeah.
Motor here.
Yeah.
Foot here. What we do here, we have to synchronise our body to keep running in the lathe, and then we cut metal on the lathe.
That's incredible.
So this is ideal for sailing ships that need to do maintenance on the sea. They haven't got electric motors, so they put one of these treadle lathes in to actually do the work, to do the maintenance, to do the polishing.
That's absolutely fantastic. So it's like an old milling, an old
Sewing machine.
sewing machines,
Sewing
and also
machine,
the
spinning
cotton spinning
Exactly,
machine,
yeah,
and all
exactly.
that kind of stuff. It
Exactly.
works off the same principle.
It is.
But this has a big chuck on it,
Yep.
and a lump of aluminium in it, and a cutting head.
Yep, and it cuts metal.
That's fantastic.
The beauty about this is it's 1920.
1920.
No longer made. No longer made. So we obviously intend to keep this.
Yeah,
Work.
very cool piece of kit, mate. Very
That
cool.
does your backing. If you've got a bad, that is hard work.
And you've got a whole bunch of hand
on
tools and
this
some
side,
grinders and stuff over
It's
here.
very much the working area. We
Yep.
get given projects, and obviously we do clean up jobs and all
Yeah.
sorts of things.
Yeah.
But basically, in a state of reorganisation as yet. There's a high-speed drilling machine there, made by a home machinist.
Okay.
We're waiting for an electric motor, an old electric
motor, and then you've got some pulleys and cogs so you can
Exactly.
change
So we can-
speeds and that
exactly.
kind of stuff.
a modern.
Oh, this is brilliant. Check it out. This is a miniature hand grinder. Go on. Oh, hello. I need to put my back into this. Look at that. We've got sparks off it and everything, Derek. Oh, magnificent.
Given to us by the blacksmith downstairs. He bought it in 1920, never used it, gave it to us, rusted. We've renovated it.
Absolutely
because
beautiful.
it's nice.
Yeah.
And it would have been used here in the mill
Yeah.
for metalworking and sharpening your tools.
That's absolutely beautiful. I've never seen one. I've had a lot of never seen moments today. This has been brilliant. Thank you
know.
very much for the invite, Derek.
All right.
Brilliant.
See you again.
See you
See you
soon.
again.
Cheers. Derek just showed me, what is this called, Derek?
This is called a radiusing plane.
A radiusing plane. And what you can do is adjust the radius, the bend, the curvature of the plate from being convex to concave.
better.
Okay? So, and then you can use that to put a radius to plane a radius. Now, what's really interesting, how old is this?
We think 1890.
1890, something
-ish.
along those lines. And if you look at the outside of it here, you can see that this is still quite serviceable. Those gears are still working there. Look at that. And everything's oiled up. And now you can see we've changed from convex to concave now. Very interesting stuff.
unique.
So this then looks like a pulley, a very intricate pulley mechanism.
Because every time this rope goes over a pulley, it halves the weight of what you're lifting down there. So although if you try lifting that with your smallest finger,
Oh, that's really hard work.
now if you just hook that same finger on there,
Yeah,
not that,
yeah.
just
And give it a gentle.
see how many pounds
gentle.
pressure you need.
And there we
See,
go.
you're
Look
off.
at that. That's very
So
easy.
every pulley
Yeah.
that rope crosses over halves the weight of what you're lifting.
So that's a reduction ratio.
Yes. Yes.
Very nice. Now you're into woodwork, is that right?
I am.
You're a woodworker. So what have you got on the table here then?
Well, I'm only demonstrating the different planes that we use today.
Okay.
Well, what they used in the old days.
Yes.
This is a jack plane that we used to use to hang doors with.
Okay. And look at that.
Oh, Of course it won't work when you want it to. It's like everything else.
Exactly. Here's one we prepared earlier.
But
Oh, there we go. Yeah. That's like a little thumb plane.
It's a block
Beautiful.
plane.
A block plane.
We call block plane, but
Okay. Look at those shavings that are coming off of there.
they're very fine. So
Is that cedar?
it's cedar.
That's
yeah.
beautiful. Oh, it
How
smells
did you
absolutely
know?
beautiful.
How did you
Oh, I know a little bit about wood, not a lot, not a lot. Lovely to meet you. I'm Howard, and you have got a fantastic display here of many, many, many interesting pieces. Some that I recognise. For instance, just looking in here, I can see this is an old spoke shave.
Yes.
Now, the spoke shave that I'm used to has two thumb places here and some little twiddly screws on the top of it to give you the ability to set the depth of the blade. This is obviously much older than the spoke shave that I've got at home. How any idea? Would you care to hazard a guess how old one of these spoke shaves might be in here?
200-year-old.
200 years old. Hi, I'm Howard.
I'm in.
Ian, nice to meet you. You appear to have a woodworker's lathe in front of you.
Yes, well, a hobbyist one anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you making at the moment?
At the moment I'm attempting to copy this because it's broken.
Ah, okay. And is that to restore a piece of furniture
It's from
here?
that chair.
It's from the chair, I see it over there. Yeah, okay. So it's from Tony's chair. So you're making something to fix Tony's chair.
Yes.
How cool is that? Then on the wall behind you, I'm sorry to sort of like jump around all over the place, but on the wall behind you here, you've got some really, really old, beautiful looking hand saws.
Yes, they are. Well, they're not all hand saws. That's a machine saw.
Okay.
No, actually, just so is that one. But the ones with handles are hand saws. They're dog saws, which is where we get the term top dog and underdog from.
Is that right?
Yeah. You basically have a big trench
Okay.
with the logs across the trench, and so you have one person on top walking along and one person underneath walking along. So the person underneath gets all the sawdust on him.
Hence the underdog. Brilliant.
So you always wanted to be the top dog.
Brilliant. Learn something new every day. Ian, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Yeah.
So we're back with Ron, and the line shaft is driving a bandsaw. So how do you fire this thing up then, Ron?
Have a lever underneath,
A lever underneath.
pulls the belt from the loose pulley onto the fixed pulley,
Ah, so that
and then that will drive the bandsaw.
shifts the belt across
Shifts
from a
the belt
loose pulley
across.
to a.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. Okay. And there's a little slip clutch on there.
on there,
Yeah.
and that puts
Okay.
the bandsaw in motion.
And then
Then you can cut straight lines or curved lines, whatever you like, whatever you're doing. You can go curved.
so we're here at Combe Mill or Combe Mill.
Definitely Combe.
Combe Mill. We'll ask some more in a minute.
Yeah.
And these gentlemen very kindly brought along a steam engine. It's magnificent.
Yeah, it's a steam roller. It's built in 1929. Bought by Woodhams to work in Catford, London. And that's they bought it brand new.
For laying roads.
For laying roads, for laying the new product called Tarmacadam that
Okay.
we all know today. You
So
know,
it's a tarmac.
tarmac. Yeah. Before that, they used to crush stone and roll stone, and then pour hot tar on top of it and chuck grit on top of it. So, but then they mixed it all together and made a proper, as we know today, Tarmacadam.
So it's in absolutely immaculate condition. Have you restored it? Have you built it around an existing?
No, it came to us in a state where it had been left for probably 40 years in a garden.
Yeah.
With various sheets over the top of it, and there was no paint on it. It was no lagging, no roof hardly, and all like that. And we slowly worked our way through over about 7 or 8 years doing it up. But we've always had it running.
Yes.
So we've gone to shows and we've gone to things, and supported local events and done that. So
Fantastic.
and we've driven it from Whitney today here, which is about 8 miles.
You've done 8 miles in
We've
this
done
thing
8
today.
miles today. Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't behind you.
No,
Point number one.
Yeah, we let them all overtake. We only go slowly.
Of course, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. To be honest, to see something like this on the road is an absolute privilege.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful. It really is. You must spend quite a lot of time working on it and maintaining it.
We basically, Brian comes along and helps me, and we have a Tuesday night, steam engine night, and every Tuesday we spend 3 or 4 hours on it.
Fantastic. And lots of cups of tea.
Lots of, yeah.
When he gets into making
Yeah, when I actually make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is any beer involved?
No.
No.
A bit late.
Not on a Tuesday night.
Not on a Tuesday night. Not on a
There
school
might be a little bit later on.
It's absolutely beautiful. What's the name?
It doesn't have a name.
It doesn't have a name.
No.
Okay.
The engine number's 8005, and yeah.
And do you keep this in your garage?
I do keep it in.
Obviously
a shed.
not a garage, but you got a big shed.
A big shed, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
beautiful. Absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a privilege. What lovely for you guys to come down today to support Combe Mill.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the right name.
Yeah.
That's what I like to see.
Beautiful weather.
Oh, it's fantastic, and you're on the River Evenlode here as well, which flows down to the Thames, starts off in Gloucestershire, and you couldn't find it on a better morning.
No, it's absolutely
And,
magnificent. The drive down was beautiful as
it's
well.
a fabulous part of the world. The thing is, the river didn't used to run over there, it used to run through the mill, and that was the case right up until probably the late 1960s, when Blenheim Palace decided that having a bigger yard for the sawmill was of more use than having a water wheel, which had stopped working by then. But if you want to cut right back to the beginning, in Saxon times there was a mill here. If you look at the Domesday Book, you'll see the village of Combe, pronounced C-U-M, with a mill. And it was probably a flour mill, people don't really know. And then in the 1700s, 1760-ish, it was bought by the Dukes of Marlborough. I think it was probably the 4th Duke at that time. But it carried on being rented out to tenants as a flour mill, we guess. And it wasn't until about the 1850s that they developed the whole of Combe Yard and the mill into a sawmill. A sawmill powered by both steam and water, which is unusual. The rest of the yard was filled with workshops for the carpenters and the wagon makers and the stonemasons. It was a complete builder's yard of the Blenheim estate. After they built the palace, mind you, but they'd got thousands of acres. So, and that was the case. It ran as a sawmill. When electricity came in around the 1950s, they didn't need the water wheel anymore, hence the river being filled in, and we've just got the tail race left, and we now pump water from the Evenlode into a little pond, which is what's left. But the beam engine was put in around the 1850s, 1860s mark, but it stopped working in 1912. The frost got at it, we think.
Oh, it's a shame.
But they never bothered to repair it.
Yeah.
And it sat there until 1969, when I think the palace made a move to break it up for scrap. And the Oxford Museum Service got involved and did a survey. And the origins of the Combe Mill Society that runs this place now was to restore the engine. The Duke let them in and they eventually got it running. They scraped the rust off the Cornish boiler, and that was back in steam right up until 2003 as one of the sort of last working wrought iron Cornish boilers in existence still.
I've seen that, and it's absolutely magnificent. It's got some proper little rivets in there, handmade rivets.
Handmade
beautiful.
Rivets. It's beautifully wrapped, but being wrought iron, of course, the rust has just delaminated it like flaky pastry.
Yeah.
If you say look at the one at the Etruria Museum, which is a later boiler, that's proper iron, steel, so you can weld and rivet, but wrought iron, you're somewhat stuffed if it delaminate. But so the engine stopped working and didn't get repaired. So when the First World War came along, they had to bring in mobile steam engines to drive the line shafting, to cut the wood, to make duck boards and pit props for the front line in France. And that's sort of recorded, the fact it was requisitioned by the War Department. We don't know what happened in the Second World War, other than the fact that they brought in mobile steam engines, like fairground traction engines, to continue the same thing. I mean, you've heard a whistle there. That's a visiting steam engine, a lovely Wallace and Stevens steam engine from Colin Bellamy down in Witney. We get a lot of support from local clubs, and we're all volunteers, so the number of different skills we've got here is quite extraordinary. We've just paid for the first time to have professional millwrights in to look at the water wheel. The water wheel, as I say, stopped working in the 50s. It probably hasn't done a day's work in its life since then, but we managed to get it turning. But the problem is that the original shaft was probably put in 1880-ish. The second shaft, the one we've got now, is 1934. But it's getting old, and the ends where the gudgeons go is very soggy. So we've had a lot of work done to reinforce that and replace the bearings. And we're hoping to run it again. If the river level drops a bit, you've either got too much water or too little water with a water wheel, which is obviously why they put the beam engine in the first place. But if you come and see the mill now, you've got steam, water power when we can. We've even got an electric motor driving the line shafting when we're not in steam, just to give some life into the mill.
And the line shaft is a large wrought iron shaft that runs through
the whole length of the mill. That's right.
Length of the mill and drives
100
all
mil
the
diameter. It runs normally about 90 RPM. If the water wheel was turning today, it would probably turn at about 2 RPM, and the gearing multiplies that up by about 10 to 1 or 9 to 1. One of the problems with the water wheels is, of course, they get very wet. And back in 2004, our predecessor volunteers, wisely asking around what woods do you use in mills, they were told hornbeam. So they spent a huge amount of money on hornbeam, which, the very best is very expensive. And they refitted all these 162 teeth in the pit gear with hornbeam. And of course, 12, 14 years on, it's all rotted because the pit gear sort of sits underwater half the time. So we've been fundraising for oak teeth. And I've been doing a sponsorship of tooth fairies. People have certificates saying they've sponsored teeth at the mill. And we've raised the money to replace all 162 teeth. And the idea was we'd replace the hornbeam as they broke, but they're breaking faster and faster, and our poor carpenter can't quite keep up. But that's the sort of thing we do to try and keep the heritage working.
And what sort of equipment have you got inside the mill?
Well, downstairs we've got the blacksmith's forge, and the hearth itself is a one-off. It's the last working handy-side forge, but it's the last one still in existence. And we let visitors make pokers and toasting forks.
So you have an active blacksmith?
Yeah, we do.
Then.
We do. We've got about 4 or 5 volunteers, and we make commissions for people. We've just been asked by Blenheim Palace whether we'll come up with an idea for a development of 300 houses locally. They want something craft-like to go on each house.
Very nice.
So our blacksmiths are looking a bit pale at the thought of making 300 number plates. But they've probably got 3 years to do it in, it's no good. But we get people asking if we can make a 9.3-inch gate hook or something special, which is great.
Fantastic.
And we made something the other year for somebody, 2 brackets, and the guy gave us £250 donation, which is fantastic.
Very nice.
And they love the fact that it's sort of volunteer run and crafted. So downstairs, blacksmith's forge, small steam engines which have been acquired, showing the history of the steam engine. Then upstairs we've got the smaller line shaft, which is powered from downstairs by a belt, and that drives the original bandsaw, which is made by Warren Lewis and was used to cut the fellies, amongst other things, for cartwheels. We've got the original plywood templates for fellies. It's like people with their shoes, they have their own lasts.
Yes.
I think the wagoners had their own felly templates to be cut out. We've also got the original belt-driven lathe up there, which was used for doing the naves on the cartwheels and for finials and bedposts at the palace and all that. But we've also got more required, so we've set up one of our bays of belt-driven metalworking equipment, which Derek's been working on, Derek Goddard, which is nice because although it's not strictly speaking what happened when the mill stopped really working around. I mean, I suppose we should say, after the First World War, things were never the same here. The upstairs was probably not touched from 1921 till 1980, when our society went up there and scraped off all the pigeon droppings. It was just frozen in time. The foreman's office, we've done over since we've had lottery money. So upstairs, I say, we've got lots of documentation from about 1860, old timesheets and ledgers and things like that. We've got lots of old catalogues, which are wonderful. We've got the lathe, we've got the bandsaw, we've got the demonstration of metal tools, we've got loads of carpentry tools, some of them dating back to the 1700s. On a more modern basis, we've got a volunteer who's made a modern computer-controlled router, which the Victorians would have done if they had the technology. They'd have gone there. They'd have gone for the latest technology. We know they would have done. We've got pewter casting up there, which we can do. We've got a Millie the Cat trail for the youngsters.
Absolutely.
Which is great. That's a great commercial thing, that.
I've seen a lot of kids here today, and they're all absolutely adoring all the different aspects and the little nooks and crannies. And every time you look in a room, you see something different again.
That's right.
I feel as though you could go in the room 10 times and notice something different each time around.
You can go in that forge, for instance, and I've been here now, 13, 14 years, and hanging on the wall is a sort of history, probably the last goodness of how many decades, and you'll find a branding iron there, and you'll find another tool that you don't recognise. And if you look at the horseshoes, I mean, if you've got a horseshoe expert with you, they'll tell you a whole history about different types of remedies for lame horses and all that. It's fascinating. But as I say, it's only as it's interpreted by the volunteers. If somebody knows something specifically about, I say shoemaking, that's gone off the radar at the moment. We've got a whole load of stuff that was donated from Great Tew when the cobbler there retired. So yeah, we've got all sorts of treasure troves of stuff.
It's superb. So from my quick trip around, obviously we're going to get back in there in a minute and film some more footage and get into a little bit more detail of some of the equipment and some of the magical things that you have here at the mill.
Yeah.
But for the very small entrance fee, and considering that all of you guys are volunteers working to try and improve this fantastic facility, it's well worth a visit, and it's great for the family as well. It's not just for engineers.
No. We've tried to really break away from that. Because when I first came, it was all about the beam engine, and the volunteers themselves didn't really know what they got here. They hadn't got it. Some of them only ever worked on the beam engine. The water wheel was barely working. The blacksmiths were in their little element, and upstairs was quite a hodgepodge of collections. We're now cataloguing everything, because we're trying to go for museum accredited status, open up some more funding. But we tried to open up the social, there's three strands really. There's the good old engineering of what woodworking was about.
Yeah.
Then you've got the social history side of it, about what the men earned here, what they did. Because bear in mind, they were going out from here to the whole of the estate. They'd be on the train that stopped here, all the way down to farms, miles away. They'd be bicycling. They had the store here for stuff. So the social history is fascinating. But then you've got the natural history, because we've got access across there into Blenheim's woods. So our strapline is sapling to sawdust.
Yes.
We can tell the whole story from the tree being harvested to being cut up, and the kids, you ask kids, what do you do with wood, and they'll brainstorm tables, chairs and all that, and then you get them thinking about what do you do with the bits left over from all that, and you talk about recycling and making charcoal, and you can really tell the story beautifully from that. Just it takes a bit of time, but we had one case where we had some film of a tree being felled, and these huge tractors, hydraulic arms taking the logs out of the wood. And we said to the children, back in Victorian times, how would they have done that? And there were sort of, lots of men, but they had a bit of help from animals. And elephants kept cropping up. And we said, well, great idea. Not many elephants around West Oxfordshire these days. And then lions, snakes, and eventually we got down to heavy horses, you know, and that led on. But it was a wonderful dialogue with the kids to make them think, you know.
Derek had a casting earlier that was made from a pattern from a piece of wood upstairs, and he handed the piece of wood to a young boy, and the young boy's looking at the piece of wood, big gear, you know, thinking, oh, it's interesting, you know, and then he hands him the metal one, exactly, and all of a sudden, realism sinks in. So they've made this metal cog from a pattern of wood.
Yes, I know.
And you could see a little bit of engineering that boy.
We're hoping, we've had to have one of the gudgeons recast for the water wheel, and the pattern for that big thing painted red. We haven't got it back yet from the foundry, but the gudgeons, you can see the old gudgeon by the side of the water wheel. But that was a very interesting exercise because the millwrights had to draw it up, and the wings on that thing are tapered multi-directions so the wedges can lock it in. But that, I think it cost about 850 quid to make the pattern and 350 quid to have it cast, which wasn't bad really this day and age. But that was an interesting exercise, and of course we can show that to the public when we get it all back.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks ever so much, Tony.
Take care, mate.